How are you?
We're fine.
Hello, Jacob. How are you?
Good, good, good. I'm happy to be with you guys. So let's just make a short introduction into the laboratory and its theme. So it's people from Africa preserving heritage, African heritage, preserving cultural patrimony through fashion. So fashion is a way to preserve and conserve ancestral roots and knowledge. Its use allows the transmission of heritage to future generations. So let's start with the first question, and I'll ask Ezekwem to start the conversation about the first question. So, what are the challenges in the fashion industry to promote the circular economy and preserve your heritage as you insert in the market?
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Ezekwem Ikukwuyin, and I'm from Nigeria. I'm a fashion consultant and a researcher too. And from your question, I'll be very direct, and I also draw an instance from my own personal experience too, right? I'm a traditional man, so I understand what it means to when you talk about ancestral and all this tradition and heritage, in the African culture, right? So one of the major challenges I encountered, during some of my experiences, when I was trying to, I found the Zulu culture, for instance, very interesting in terms of their color and motifs. So I decided to pick different cultures in Africa, selected communities in Africa, right? And use their color and motifs, and bring them into one, right? Using it to depict the strength in Africa, right? So it was a bit challenging for me because of I was not able to get a standard infrastructure, right, or a textile factory that is of good standard that could produce some of these prints for me to the quality I needed, right? So that was that. Then I also found it difficult to assess some of these sustainable materials that would help me create this African feel on these fabrics. As far as when you're trying to even communicate to people about your idea, it becomes difficult because they are not aware, right? And their level of education could be low, right? So you need to go through a lot of stress, creating more awareness, or rather, trying to train them for them to understand, and you being able to communicate for them to understand whatever you are communicating, right? Then also again, when you're trying to create a balance between two different cultures, it's very, very different. It's very, very difficult, right? Because one of my aim then was to get those motifs that has gone instinct, and bring them back to life, right? Using technology, like bringing them back to life in 3D form, right? So that is to say, I'm trying to, because it has gone extinct because they feel it's still like a local way of doing things, right? But what I do is to give it some level of aesthetics, and some level of finishing and good designs, by combining different colors from different culture together to bring out something more sustainable, and usable for Africans, something that we can sell outside the country and to still be appreciated, right? So these are some of the challenges I feel we face in Africa, using myself as an instance, my experience as an instance. Thank you.
No, but in fact, I would like to say that it's really beautiful to see the use of the need of connection between different people, between different traditions, and making sure there is a collaboration towards conserving of the tradition. And I think, again, like I always think collaboration is key if we want to see good impact on our societies. And I would like to pass now the question to Omorunmi. So what's your opinion on this argument?
Okay, thank you again for having me. I'd also like to appreciate Hecho Nosotros for putting this side event together, alongside, with the Permanent Forum for indigenous issues, which is what we are discussing here today, particularly as it relates to fashion industry. I'm speaking from the point of view of being a mentor to my son, who was raised, in the fashion curriculum, in the sense that I'm going to bring out the challenge from this experience, but I'll start with how he just had a meal in the morning, and the pattern that was left on his plate was what he used eventually as a logo. Okay, and ever since, as a child, I'm speaking also from the point of view of a childhood preservation advocate, and taking the child out to be able to understand the challenges that you will face in running a fashion company, and your ability to penetrate the market. Not only penetrating the market, your ability to be able to keep the business, sustain the business, because some people get to a stage that you get to a decline mode after entering the market. So the challenges we faced were numerous, in the sense that looking at the fashion industry, we realized that in some of our interviews that we went through, in the local areas, we went to the indigenes, and we realized that some of for instance, the tie and dye that they had, a lot of the waste products, served as, a deterrent. Yeah. It was more or less, a challenge to the community. And as such, we realized that there is a way that government can come in, to be able to address some of these challenges, because pretty much all they do is eventually just throw everything away, become a nuisance in the community, and unable to identify how to make their community, more productive. So we look at that area of waste, at the individual level. Now that's the individual level. We haven't even looked at the industry level, because at the industry level, eventually you realize that the waste is enormous. So how are we able to handle these challenges? That's where I you usually say that we've got to be able to address it from the point of view of the spheres of influence in our nation. Well, in many nations, if they want to be effective, they've got to be able to engage in spheres of influence. And there are 7 of them. You've got the governmental. If you don't introduce the government into any of your challenges, you're just on your own. Yeah. You realize that it's an effort in futility. And then you have the education. Now, we have a lot of indigenous people who do not read and write. They lack education, but you've got to be able to sensitize them. But you see, they have a productive model that brings everything. They contribute to the gross domestic product, the GDP of the nation. But you see, the government is not supporting them enough, which is the challenge also. So let me stop at there so we can move on.
Okay. No, in fact, I completely agree with you that without government actually being part of the process, it's really difficult many times to actually make a change, bring a change on the surface. So really interesting point there. I would like to now welcome Shariful. Shariful, what's your opinion on this issue?
So, I'm Shariful, currently pursuing my graduate course in University of Bangladesh in Textile Engineering, and I am very glad to be a part of this very wonderful conversation So on the issue you are discussing right now is a matter to be is a very important matter should that should get some attraction of people. Okay, so what are the challenges to actuate a circular economy in textile industry? So from my point of view, uh, there are several challenges. For example, one challenge is we need to adopt newer technologies that can help us to bring circular economy to actuate circular economy in reality. Uh, let's say to produce a denim fabric, a pair of jeans item, we require around 5,500 kg water to produce a single denim item, and that is the mineral water that we usually drink. So that's a very crucial point. Let alone the 700 billion people's cloth. I'm talking about one single denim item that requires 5,500 kg or 5,500 liter water. So, so what can we do in this point of view? There are in the 21st century uh, there are always innovation. There are always raising innovation, raising invention and resources. So a Dutch company named Daico Textile Solution, they have introduced a solution to this issue. Uh, in dyeing a textile or in dyeing a product, we usually require water, right? Why? Because water is a universal solvent, and we mix up the dye particles on water to make a solution and to color a garment item. So, what if we replace water with something other else? For example, liquid carbon dioxide. In normal temperature, carbon dioxide is a gas, but when it is pressurized, it turns into a liquid. It doesn't only turn into a liquid, it can readily dissolve dye particles in liquid state. So we can use liquid carbon dioxide, and this is a very wonderful technique to dye textile particles, to color textile items, eliminating the use of water. So in that way, uh, we can face the current challenges of actuating circular economy without hampering our environment. And there are some other challenges too, but uh, there are other solutions as well. So why stakeholders are not willing to adopt those challenges? Because to adopt these challenges in practice, they require new investment, they require uh, industrial setup, and they have to train their workers to align with the new technologies as well. So that's maybe the answer why stakeholders are unwilling to adopt these new challenges. And there is another challenge, that is consumers' behavior to the sustainable fashion. In this world of fast fashion, consumers are willing to adopt fast fashion items, and fast fashion items uh, are polluting our environments in various ways. For example, fast fashion items contain polyester, which is very dangerous and which is causing plastic contamination to the environment. A polyester item takes up 200 years to fully decompose in the environment. But the matter of hope is that consumers are being aware about sustainable fashion. So, so, so the situation is changing. We can dream of a world where fashion will be more sustainable, and we can attain closed loop circular economy. Thanks.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Really interesting points there. Really interesting points, in fact. Let's go to the second question now. So, from your perspective, what actions should different stakeholders take to promote sustainable development and fair trade in African countries? So again, let's start with Ezekwem. We cannot hear you, Ezekwem.
Sorry,
Okay.
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, as earlier said or mentioned by Mrs. Omoumi, where she talked about the government, them coming in and helping the communities, to solve some of these challenges they're experiencing. And another way is by investing into infrastructure, right? So that they can have a conducive environment, to be able to create some of this sustainable fashion, right? And also capacity building, by providing training and capacity building programs, right, for local artisans and say the manufacturers too, so it can enhance their ability to, produce sustainable products and compete in the global market, right? And also by collaboration too, right? Partnership, where the collaboration between maybe governments, NGOs, business, and local communities, is actually very essential for promoting sustainable development, and fair trade. Right. Then also talking about consumer education, because if you are doing all this, putting all these resources, and these consumers or artisans are not educated enough to comprehend what the message you're passing, or for them to understand, and utilize and understand the importance of what you are doing, or the importance of sustainable fashion, right? So it's good we educate these consumers about the importance of sustainable consumption and supporting fair trade too, practices. Okay, it can also it can also drive the demand for ethical produced goods too, and encourage businesses to adapt sustainable practices in the industry. I guess that's some of the call to actions I can say we need.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. And Omurunmi, what's your opinion about the second question?
Okay, so the first time, when you had said, that you don't want to bring government into it, what I was actually saying at that time is that there's absolutely no business you can do, without, lending a voice, and being a part of policy formulation with the government. Because if you establish a business and you are at the mercy of governmental policies may mar your business. Okay, so this is the angle with which I was trying to, elaborate on. So on this second one, it's saying that from what actions should different stakeholders take, to promote sustainable development and fair trade. First and foremost, I believe, like I said, that there are certain issues and areas that we need to look at. I stopped only at, out of the 7, I mentioned just government. There is media, all right? There is education, there is, economy. Then there is celebration. Celebration is under creativity, which is what Hecho's for Nosotros is all about. So ideally, stakeholders must be involved with effective collaboration. Sometimes we use some words very loosely. We just say collaboration. But you see, a lot of people, particularly in developing nations, they collaborate for the wrong reason. So that collaboration must be effective enough to generate the outcome that is required, to be most productive. And when we're going through a systemic change, systemic change involves coming through the raw material, the data, converting your data to ensure that you arrive at a productive outcome.
Yeah.
And then there's a feedback again into the system. So you see, if you collaborate with the wrong stakeholders, it will just be garbage in, garbage out. So we've got to be able to ensure that this process we embark on, we ensure that we are able to elaborate on, all these spheres of influence that will generate the increase and the necessary ethos that will build the system. I think I'll stop here.
First of all, I think you mentioned it in a really, really precise way, really. I really liked how you presented it. And I think, again, collaboration, if we need to collaborate just to collaborate, it's one thing. If we collaborate in the most efficient way, that's another other input and output we can have. So I completely agree with you. Shariful, what do you think about the second question?
Okay, yeah, the earlier speakers have told on this issue very precisely, and I totally agree with them. And I think there is a term, corporate social responsibility, that is practiced by the corporate stakeholders to do something for developing the society, for the ethical responsibility, from the ethical responsibility for the societies. For example, some stakeholders should have to invest on projects other than their corporate areas. For example, they should invest on education, they should invest on environment for the sake of developing the society, developing the nation. So this term is called corporate social responsibility, and government can take part in this area. Government can impose some policies so that stakeholders should have to align with the should have to follow the corporate social responsibility to preserve the fashion, preserve the cultural diversity in fashion. So in this way, I think we can meet up the challenge.